I got breast cancer in my left breast, and the lump was against the chest wall, right at the back of the breast, right in front of my heart. And I believe that disease in the body can often be traced back to blocked emotions. Simple. And I lived that experience.
Welcome to the Conscious Rebel Podcast with your host, Lucy Morningstar.
Mellisa Turnock is a yoga and Pilates teacher, energy and soul medicine practitioner, and a cancer survivor. This episode is all about healing, and we talk about how oppressed emotions can lead to tension and even disease in the body. And Mellisa shares her personal journey recovering from breast cancer, healing physically as well as emotionally and spiritually. Mellisa also shares her tips and her journey of healing the inner child, healing the mother wound, and practices that you can do now to start your healing process. We also talked about how to find the balance between staying in the present moment of peace and taking a stand for what you think is right.
Hello, Mellisa. So happy to connect with you again after we met in person many years ago.
A long time ago. I can't even remember when it was, but
it was a couple years. Of course, it was in-person workshops. It was before all these lockdowns and pandemic all started. And I know your life has changed quite a bit. Before we start, can you please just introduce to us yourself and tell us who you are and what you do?
Yes, of course. Thank you, my love. Well, like everybody, the last few years have certainly seen me morph and change. And not only have I personally changed enormously, but my 20-year marriage ended in 2020. So all of the stuff, I've always been interested in relationships with people. I've always had a job where I don't sit away and do something in a back room somewhere. My gig is being in the energy of people. So speech pathology is where I started, and I was a speech pathologist, particularly in brain injury rehab, for 10 or so years. And then I started to get into more sort of body-based stuff, which was the Pilates and the yoga, because I had a really bad back, like shocking bad back. So out of sheer necessity, I learned Pilates for myself. It's like everything with me. I learn it for me. I immerse myself in it. And then I decide, do I want to teach this to others? Am I a living evangelist for this? And Pilates has been an absolute yes. Yoga has been an absolute yes. Then I learned trauma release exercises, which is teaching people how to let their nervous system shake out tension that may be obvious or not even really known about, without needing to verbalize the whole story. So yet again, another body-based practice. Then I went into energy and soul medicine, which is where the real multidimensional magic started to happen, when my own spirituality blossomed. And it was like, we are so much more than this physical body, but our body is all we've got to be in communion with the earth, in relationship with others, and our multidimensionality. So if our body is repressing stuff, holding on to stuff, ignoring what's going on, we are diminishing our capacity to be in the fullest relationships, primarily, most importantly, with ourselves and who we really are, but also in relationships with others. So what you see is relationships are difficult. People don't know how to communicate with each other. They're not happy expressing their emotions. Their nervous system lives in fight or flight. We all know people like this, sometimes ourselves. Yeah. So my big passion is using whatever modality is right for the person. And that I do hypnotherapy, I do biofield tuning fork stuff. I use the tools to help people to feel safe in their body, to be able to be with the emotions. To go into that stuff, so that they can let go of it, right? Because it becomes a lens through which you view the world, and it's tough.
Yeah, so I want to ask some questions about that, because often, like when we feel unsafe, a lot of times nowadays, it's not that we are physically unsafe. It's not like someone is out there to physically punch us or or do whatever physically harming to us. A lot of times is we're dealing with emotions that just coming out of, you know, like with something within ourselves that make us feel super unsafe, right? So, but a lot of times we're not even aware of that. My first question would be, how do we start to even tell that we are probably feeling unsafe? How do we self-diagnose? You know?
Brilliant question. So it can come in lots of ways. It can come in tension in the body, like this sense of clenching. So if your body's musculature is contracting and retreating. So people will say, I've always got this really sore left shoulder. And then when I watch what they do with their bodies, I see how they're repressing parts of themselves or holding onto their anger. It's literally stored in your body. So first point of call is you will start to notice habitual, repetitive tensions, strains, maybe injury, and along the continuum of desperation into illness. And my breast cancer was most definitely a manifestation of me shutting my heart down. So the body, first of all, secondly, your throat, your expression, are you going to say things and then finding yourself self-censor?
I wonder if people who constantly or regularly have throat inflammation would be a sign, because I remember when I was teenager or even probably a kid, even probably up to my 20s or even 30s, early 30s, I constantly have throat inflammation, like regularly did. And then, you know, it's like late in my, I'm 40 now this year. So it's like, I think in my probably mid 30s, I start to not have throat inflammation. I haven't had throat inflammation for years now. For the last couple of years. And you know, it's after I started on the self-development spiritual journey, then I reflected back, was probably because I, as a kid, you know, in the Chinese background, you're beaten to be obedient, and if you say anything, the authority don't agree, you're talking bad as a bad kid. And then as an immigrant that come to Australia, you felt like this is not your place, you better be good and not say anything. So I wonder if that was actually a symptom that you are not saying
Totally.
your own voice.
As I said, you know, your body is the vessel for which we get to express who we are, to fit in, to come here to do what we came here to do. And if the body is limited in doing that, then all of that gets stored up in the body. And absolutely. So if the pattern as you grew up, and this is such a big, you know, like look back at your history, were you able to freely express as a child? Were you encouraged to be an individual? Were you given unconditional love? Did you have to be the parent sometimes? Like all of these experiences that we have will affect the way we are today. And if you are noticing that you hide parts of yourself, that you don't say out loud what you really want to say, that you conform to other people's expectations. People pleaser is a big one. All of these things are indications that you are shutting down the truth of who you are. And in God's emanation, and use God or source or the divine or Sophia, whatever you want, we came here in order to be in unity, to be in right relationship. And everything that has us shut down or feel not worthy, or no one gives a shit about what I say, or I'll get in trouble if I do this, it all feels yucky in your body. And this is the biggest red flag for me. It is this simple, Lucy. If something doesn't feel good in your body, it's a sign that you are shutting something down or ignoring something. It's that simple. You watch kids when they play, they don't self-censor. They don't go, oh, I better not dance like that because everyone will think I'm an idiot. That they haven't put the lenses and the filters over themselves to fit in. So simple on last point on this, you know, how do we self-diagnose? If you don't feel comfortable and you don't feel safe and you're holding something back and you are not letting yourself be naturally who you are, then something is going on within you.
Okay. So if for say someone recognize that something doesn't feel right, and maybe they're very afraid to speak up either publicly or even just in their personal relationships, what do you, or like what should that what would be the first step that the person can take to start to remedy that?
Yeah. First of all, stop ignoring it. Stop
So
denying it.
how do we stop ignoring it? So like maybe if you have a concrete example as a that you can walk us through.
So you feel this discomfort in you, you feel this resentment, and the first thing is giving yourself permission to feel it, right? I'm not a bad person because I feel angry or resentful or afraid. And there literally is this part of you that is holding on to that story, but there is also this other part of you that is fully capable of holding space for that part of you, because we are multidimensional. So the first thing you'll do is you'll acknowledge that you feel that and say, you know, I feel like I can't really be who I am, and I'm here for that part of myself. I am able to reparent, to be the one that holds space for the one that feels hard done by or not welcome or whatever it is. Now, a really practical example that I teach all of my clients is to stand up and imagine you're standing in one circle on the ground, and in that circle, which is just a bit wider than your feet, you feel all the shit. Like you literally let yourself feel it. You're not going to die. This is going to be very healing. You feel the frustration, the anger. For me, my core wound was nobody gives a shit what I think. No one ever asks me what I think, and everybody dumps their crap on me. So you stand in that first circle in the space of healing and knowing that this is going to be transformative for you, and you let your body feel it. You have to feel it to heal it. But you're not staying here for 3 weeks, and you're not going to be a puddle on the floor. You are simply saying to the part of yourself that feels that, I'm here for you. I actually love you. I actually admire how many years you have been able to put up with this shit, to live in fear. Can you feel how there's this energy of this acceptance? Then you feel it and it's like, it's horrible, I hate it. And then you take a big step to the side in the second circle. And in that circle is the exact opposite feeling of that. And you can feel the energy shift in your body, because you know what the antidote to your pattern is, right? We all know dark and light. We all know yes and no. Your infinite wisdom knows when you step into that circle, you get to feel the difference in the energy. So this is 3-pronged. This is working with our nervous system, our emotions, and our energy. But for me, that's a really good way to increase your awareness about the impact of your negative thing on your body. Because Lucy, until you can feel it in your body, it's just a story or an esoteric concept. It's like, I don't feel anger. Well, it's so buried down. You've numbed your nervous system to even feeling it. And that numbness, how many people go through life with that numbness, right?
Yes.
Got to start to feel it, but know that there is an antidote. So moving between those 2 circles, it's like, can you feel it now? It's like, yes, I can see it. I can feel it. I can hear it in my body. But let's step to the side into the opposite, because we all know what the opposite is. It's not it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
For me, it was softness, because there was a lot of hardness in my body, which had built up in protection. We've all got this armor.
Yes,
you know that. You've had your story, I've had mine. But when we feel the opposite of it, it's like, I have to learn to trust my body, that my body can navigate me out of this prison that I'm in. Because your mind can't do it alone. Your affirmations, your vision boarding, I always say this on my socials, enough of this like mindset affirmation stuff. The trauma is in your body, and you have to be with it and start reparenting it. So there's so many different approaches, but that's like one really good suggestion to go, I can feel how invasive, I can feel how intense this anger or whatever it is. I just did a video about frustration before I came on with you. You got to feel it, and then you got to step to the side and go, what would it feel like without that intensity? That feels better.
Yeah, I also did something similar myself. It's really effective. It's something similar is I also, come on one side of the room and say, I on my own free will, I decide to fully become the part of myself that feels like this anger, this. And then I just voice recorded myself and blah, 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 said a bunch of things. And then I just say, I let go of this part of myself, and then go like exactly what you said, go to the opposite side of the room and looking at that side, I put a chair there and imagine the person, and I, by my own free will, I just become the opposite of that. And then blah, blah, blah set of things. And then I just going between the two parts and have a dialogue and just record it that. So it's
Perfect.
like, it's like, it's very similar to what you said. And I found that to be really helpful. It's like, we all, like you said, we all have these different parts of ourselves, right? I call it like split personalities, right? And
and these parts, like what we often do is we often judge them, or we say, oh, I'm sick of feeling like that. I'm so tired of this attitude that I've got. When we say that to that part of ourselves, we're saying to it, I don't give a shit about you. You can continue to suffer. So we have to we have to create space to feel compassion and send love, because the parts of us, that one on that first side of the room, they were doing the very best they could at the time. So it probably stems a little bit from childhood. Your childhood Lucy self, she didn't know any different other than to, be a good girl in the home. She was protecting herself. She was being very wise.
But she didn't want to.
No, but when you're 30, it's like, you need to go back to that version of you. And that's what I love about inner child work, is you literally say to her, I know how frustrated you were. You didn't want to have to do that, but geez, you did a good job. You were a very good actress, and I adore you because you got me through. You got me from probably getting whacked around the head or being shouted at. And I know how hard it was for you. You have to go on that journey, Lucy, because once that part of you receives the love and the attention, you've healed that. You can release that. And then the next layer will come up. From our rewilding experience where there is layer upon layer of stuff. And we only get given what we have the capacity to be with. That's a really encouraging point. The universe doesn't dump 35 years of trauma on you the first time you decide to stand in that little circle. It just doesn't.
Oh.
It gives you the little bit, and you get to say, just like you said, of my own free will, dear universe, don't swamp me with this stuff. Just give me the first taste of this, because I really don't want to go through life like this anymore. And let's co-create together. That might be something that you say. You get to create these energetic grids and boundaries about how you work with this stuff. All right. You're not at the mercy of it. You're an adult. So I love the chair idea. I remember when I was in my early 30s and I started seeing a psychologist, which was sort of my first sort of talk therapy. It was like, I got the dining table and I had my mum in that chair, my dad in that chair, my brothers in this, and I let those conversations be had. That's another lovely thing to do, without fear of recrimination. Let this person, for me, it was my mum, let her say what she wants to say. And what you often come back to is, they didn't know any better. Your parents didn't know any better, Lucy. They were living their life under the model that they were taught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can definitely see that with my mom now, because she was like the violent one, the one that's so often, verbally and physically abusive one. But now we have a really good relationship. My relationship, not so good relationship, is actually with my dad now, who was like the nice one. But I'm sure with my relationship, especially with my dad, it still has a lot of healing to do. And I know that really had to start with me, but I still have trauma that actually happened later, not at the early childhood, but happened actually later in life, that I know that I'm still holding on to. That I'm still not, I'm not sure if I'm ready to face it yet. So like in situation like this, what can someone like me in situation like this do? Like there's something that you have to start healing yourself to but you're so uncomfortable and you still have so much resentment. Like I can't understand him intellectually, but I still have this emotional resentment that I'm clinging on to. I know it's me logically, but
you can't rush this stuff. You can't force these parts of you to come into the light and be addressed. Just acknowledging that it's there with love and respect for it. And you might say to that emotional tension, I'm not quite ready to be with you. I know you're there. I'm not ignoring you, but I want to be really ready. I want to be really ready, and I want my heart to be open to deal with you really well. Are you okay with just waiting a little bit longer? Because you know I'm working my way towards you. But right now I'm focusing on something else. And when you acknowledge that, you will feel a little bit of that relief in you, because that part of you isn't being ignored and told she's, shouldn't be there or anything. She's being acknowledged, but not right now. I don't quite have the strength to deal with you. I will get back to you. Simple as that. How does that feel, doing that?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Because it's really quite simple. All of these uncomfortable things that we feel are parts of ourselves that didn't get their needs met. If you boil it all down to that. So you, as the adult you, with the awareness, many people would never do anything like this because they don't have a clue, and that's their journey and their karma. But for those of us that are aware, it's never too late. That part of you is never going to say, well, where were you? Where were you for the last 20 years? You never hear that. You just feel love because you get to give all the love to that part of you that is holding on to that emotional tension. But when you're ready, it has to be when you're ready. And so everything else you're doing, unbeknownst to you, is you preparing to get more and more close towards that. Every time you let yourself feel an emotion, every time you have a conversation with yourself, every time you meditate, every time you sit in silence, every time you do an embodiment practice, these are all the different pieces of you shedding the layers. And then suddenly one day you will be ready for that. And you will say, I am here. I just want this much. Don't give me it all. I just want this much. I'm going to sit at the table, or I'm going to dance that energy out. You know how powerful dancing is, and just let that energy be expressed through your body. It doesn't even need to have a conversation, just using the movement. That's what I love about rewilding and all these embodiment practices, is you get to use your breath and your movement to deal with these things. You don't even have to have words to it, because sometimes the words are too hard, but just saying to your body, I'm here, let's move some of this energy, that's so powerful.
Yeah, Mellisa, will you be willing to share some of your personal experience when it comes to, recognizing, like, self-diagnosed, really starting to become aware that you have this trauma and stuff that you're oppressing, and how do you deal with it, and what's your journey like?
So in my household, there was no affection, no emotion. There was silent resentment on behalf of two parents who didn't like each other. So as the older, more sensitive child and the only girl, I picked up on that and shut myself down, because my mission was to make everyone happy and to excel at school. You might have had a similar thing. So any emotional stuff just got repressed. And then I started to notice, when I was going out in my 20s, how I'd go to a party, or particularly with Alan, who became my husband, I'd go to a work function and I'd watch all these people be so opinionated and have all these opinions about politics or this or that. And I remember thinking to myself, how come I've got nothing to say? How come I feel so neutral? How come I don't get fired up like they do? And I realized that my nervous system had worked as a child all the way over the dial to disassociation, which was numbness, which is functioning beautifully, because I had relationships, I ran a speech pathology department, I drove a car, I got married, I had a son. All of that happens on the surface, but felt nothing on the inside. Now, the problem with numbing ourselves out to the pain of not being acknowledged as a child is you also numb yourself out to the good stuff. You can't just disassociate from the bad things and think that life is going to feel good, because you've turned the dial down on the receptivity of your nervous system so much that you smile appropriately and you do and say all the right things, but you're feeling nothing. So that was the first red flag. And then my relationship with my mother, she wanted to keep me in that childhood role, and I could feel the anger start to build. It's like, no, you don't get to tell me how to be an adult. You did enough damage when I was a child. And then breast cancer came. And there's nothing like a diagnosis of cancer or a really serious illness. It can go one of two ways. It can go, okay, I'm just going to deal with this and pretend it never happened, or I'm just going to deal with this and then I'm going to ask my body, what the hell was that about? Because I was perfectly healthy Pilates instructor running a studio in North Sydney, and everyone used to say to me, God, if you can get cancer, Mel, I'm doomed because you're so healthy and you look after yourself. I got breast cancer in my left breast, and the lump was against the chest wall, right at the back of the breast, right in front of my heart. Now, what happens in your body is when you don't honor the emotions and you repress them, it gets congested and it gets compressed, and it manifests as tension or tightness or discomfort all the way through to disease. And I believe that disease in the body can often be traced back to blocked emotions. Simple. And I lived that experience, because once the trauma of like the shitstorm of breast cancer treatment happened, and I had both my breasts removed, I had reconstruction.
You had to have both, even the thing just on the left?
Yeah, well, that was a choice, because when you have one breast off and not the other, you have like a physical difference between the two. And to be perfectly honest, Lucy, when I found out I had breast cancer and I had to choose what treatment option to take, I thought, I don't want to be conscious of my physical body forever. If I get them both off, then I'll never be told I have cancer again, for a start, because your chance of recurrence is 70%, or it was back then in 2009. Wow. You're 70% likely to get cancer in the second breast. So I never wanted to be told you've got cancer again. So I'm going to deal with this. I'm so going to deal with this. You just watch me. So I had both off. I had reconstruction. And because I was a Pilates instructor, I knew all of the physical rehab to prepare for the surgery and to recover. And so within 4 weeks of my surgery, I had full range of motion in both my arms. I mean, that's unheard of. So many women get lymphedema and frozen shoulder. But of course, the universe had provided me with the knowledge of how to keep joints and muscles free and moving in order to manage the breast cancer. What happens after the physical, arduous process of chemo or radiotherapy or whatever you have is, when it's all over and the doctor says, treatment over, off you go, that's when the real work, that's when the real heartache starts, because nothing feels the same anymore. And my heart broke. I spent a lot of time in the breast cancer sort of post-cancer support community for a couple of years. My heart broke for the number of people who literally just went home from their last chemotherapy treatment and, just started vacuuming the house and cleaning the house like nothing had happened. For me, it was like, okay, I'm listening. If you're going to proliferate cancer, and I know you want me to thrive, I know that the idea of being human is to be here in the fullness and enjoy and playfulness and to enjoy life, you stopped me dead in my tracks. What's going on? And I started to begin my spiritual inward journey. And I was laying on a kinesiology table one day, and this incredible kinesiologist put an essential oil on the crown of my head and did her magic. And I got a vision very quickly of me as a young girl, curled up in a ball, hiding inside my own body. And so began the relationship with the many versions of Mellisa And this was a multi-dimensional, spiritual, body-based unraveling of my trauma history. And because I was so ready to listen and so available, the journey began in earnest. And I literally reparented 1,001 versions of me. Now, one day I was out walking, and this is when it cemented for me why I got cancer. And I wonder how many other people have this realization. My son Alec was in mass tutoring, and I had an hour to do a walk around the neighborhood every Tuesday afternoon. And I'm walking around and just quiet, contemplative. And this voice I heard, it said, "You know why you got cancer, don't you?" And I said, "No, but I'm listening. You had the resources emotionally, physically, spiritually to heal that trauma from your body, whereas all the women in the line before you didn't. Your mother, your mother's mother, your mother's mother. That trauma of shutting your heart down in protection is carried through your line. You were born into this body. You're the one that took the hit for the team, so to speak, and got the breast cancer to heal this thing, to heal this closed heart. You cannot go through your life with armor over your heart and think you're going to have a decent life. You are going to be imprisoned in your own experiences, Luce, and you know that. So when I heard this little message from the divine, it was like, yeah, I thought that was it, but thank you for clarifying that. And I needed to heal my relationship with myself. I did that for years through rewilding and trips to India and every bloody yoga retreat I could sign up for, and sitting in front of my altar. And then the clairvoyance kicked in, and all of these skills and gifts from, our multidimensional self started to come through. Then one day, suddenly I was ready to deal with my mum, who had been my harshest critic, but also my greatest teacher. Yeah. And just sitting on my own balcony meditating on the day that I decided to confront her about the truth of what my childhood had been like, because she was just living this dream. And I knew I was ready to do that. And that was the next sort of big healing thing. And I did that, and I said out loud from a place of self-love, not judgment, because we can only come to these truth-telling moments with ourselves and with others where we say out loud what we never dreamt we'd have the guts to do. We can only do those things from a place of love, not resentment. Because if you're like, you were an asshole and you did this, like, how do you think that's going to go down?
Not well.
Right? You're just churning the pond up and inviting the other person to project back at you.
Yeah.
When I knew that I could sit in front of my mum and say out loud, your version of my childhood is very different from mine. I would like to share with you what it was like for me. When I was doing that from a place of love for all of the versions of Mellisa that needed to be honored, then I was ready to do it. I remember my sister-in-law saying, "Aren't you terrified she's going to ostracize you for talking like that to her?" I said, "I don't give a shit. I cannot be in relationship with this woman anymore in that vibration that she brings to the table. I need to speak my truth to honor myself." I'll never forget it, Lucy. I mean, I could write a book about the experiences I had, and I did it. And I sat in front of her, and with such love for myself to need to heal and let go of that history, I said it. And it didn't matter how she responded. It didn't matter if she fell on her knees and begged my forgiveness, or she just said, "I'm not sure what you're talking about, but you know I love you, don't you? And do you want a glass of wine?" It didn't fucking matter what she said. The power, I've got goosebumps, the power of self-love that comes is undeniable. And that becomes the platform for which you can do it again and again and honor yourself over and over as the years go by. Now, it didn't matter, as I said, how mum reacted, but I completely honored myself, and she never touched the sides again. Like, she never had that effect on me again. And then so like there's just thing after thing like that were lines in the sand for me to go, okay, you're ready for this next piece of healing. You're ready for this next piece of healing, right through just to the current day. It's a never-ending process.
Yeah, like I think I saw your post about your mom passing away, and it seemed like when you make that post, I think on Facebook about that, like you didn't have any of this baggage from the childhood anymore, and it was you know, it was just, you just had love for your mom when.
Yeah, I just get emotional even thinking about it. You have to let it go, because you have to forgive, because this churns you up. It doesn't affect the other person. You know, your issue with your dad doesn't affect him. It affects your physiology. It makes you hold yourself back. It limits your capacity to feel and to receive. So I got to a real place of compassion with my mum. She tried to kill herself, which was yet another demonstration of her unhappiness. And she tried to kill herself and ended up in a vegetative state in hospital.
Oh no.
So this was before the pandemic, thank God. So I was able to access and support her. But when she did that, I had a choice to step into a role of becoming the mother from a place of love for her, despite what she'd done, or to say, you know, stuff you, blah, blah, blah. Because of all the forgiveness and stuff that I'd done, I willingly stepped into the role. And I basically supported my mum right through to her death. And when she died, she was in a nursing home at the worst time to be in a nursing home. So for the last 10 days of her life, she was on her own.
Yeah.
So the last time I saw her, I knew that the northern beaches of Sydney, where I lived, was about to go into a 3-week lockdown. Like no one else in Sydney, just the northern beaches. So that last day that I saw her, I knew it was probably going to be the last. And I sat with her, and we sat in silence for she was out of it pretty much for the last few weeks of her life, and withering skin and bones. And we sat in silence, and I played her favorite music on my iPhone, the jazz. And I spoke to her, and I thought, I don't even know if she can hear me. It doesn't matter. I need to honor this woman, because she had a shit life. She took it out on me, but I'd forgiven her. This is what we have to do if we want to heal. And just as I stood up to leave, I said, Mum, I have to go now. She opened her eyes, and she looked at me. She said, I love you. You are my number one. Now, this woman hadn't spoken for weeks. And I thought, she fucking knows this is it. She knows she's not going to see me again. That was God speaking through my mother's body. My mother never tells me she loves me. So these are the gifts that come when you have the courage to face yourself, to love yourself through everything. So what a beautiful way to end. I mean, I'm really sorry that she was locked down and all the rest of it, and that's a whole nother story. But we had that moment together, and I got to say, I love you, Mum. And then she just closed her eyes, and I just wept in the car all the way home. And sure enough, she'd passed away on Boxing Day morning. So that journey, that lifetime with that woman, gave me my heart back. That whole thing had to be there, Lucy, and I chose to work my way through it. So this is what I mean by, if we don't feel safe enough and trust our own body, these fucking miracles are not possible for us, because we're in shutdown mode. So yeah, it's quite a relationship, and her soul and my soul talk to each other now, and she's that that unencumbered, free, playful Carol that I got glimpses of. That's like, she's like, I'm your cheering squad now, darling. I'm right here. And I feel my mum's presence, but the version of my mum that was locked inside her. So yeah, it was a happy ending in the end, really.
Oh, that's a powerful story. Yeah. Oh my
You
God.
have to deal with your stuff first, because
Yeah, of
we
course.
need to go to the person that we wish to support in their healing, because that's essentially what you will start to do if you choose. We need to go to them from this place of clear clarity, that this comes from a place of love for yourself and for them. And then miracles are possible. But until then, you can't force that, it's, and I can feel this peace in my body right now, Lucy, just recounting that story. That's what comes. And people say things to me like, I've forgotten what calm feels like. You're so peaceful, Mel. I feel so still and peaceful when I'm with you. That is who we truly are. And all of the other stuff robs us of that. It takes us out of that peace, because from this sense of peace, we really are in the present moment, and it becomes not a mental concept, but a felt sense of everything is perfect as it is. And you get to enjoy the world from this place of peace and softness until the next trigger comes and pulls you out of it. We're human, right? And we're in this 3D shitstorm right now. But you never forget this peace. And you get to choose to come back to it anytime you wish. It's only you that's letting yourself get pulled into the negativity.
Yeah. When you talk about peace, right? Like I can understand, it's like the relationship with my mom now. Now we have this loving relationship where we can talk about, like we even talked about the abuse from my perspective, and then I heard from her perspective what her story is like, and that's when I can, I come to a place like I actually know what you mean by have this place of peace in my relationship with my mom now. But I want to, but when it comes to this word peace, then I just have like other things come into mind, because like you say, the world is in the shitstorm right now. And how do you then balance? Should I just sit in peace all the time, or do I take a stand and actually say what I think matters?
Yeah, it's a happy dance between the two. When we say what we feel matters, we have to bear the consequence of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It comes with a consequence, right? I remember making a post about the injection of little children and copping a lot of flack. You have to take responsibility for your courage to say things out loud. So that's my first thought. We get to choose in every moment whether we get embroiled in the energy of what's going on out there, or we stay in a place of peace. And I think we're a human being with a life to live, so we move in and out of both. But when the overwhelm of out there is stopping us from feeling okay, robbing us of our breath, making us take stuff out on other people, having us forget to go and stand out next to a tree and let the sunlight sit on our face and listen to birds, then it's too much. You've got to find the balance. Balance is the word. So yes, get out there, rant, rave, say all the things you want to say, be that fire, because your fire might inspire someone else to have the courage to do it. So yes, do it all, but not to your detriment. You've got to be able to deal and not collapse in a heap on the floor with what comes as a consequence of speaking out. But you also need to balance that with moments of leaving everyone out there to do their own thing and doing your painting, making a cup of cacao and sitting there, stroking your cat, being in the present moment without anyone else having anything to do with your energy, because it's all about our energy, and our energy gets sucked out of us into this place of fire and wrath and anger. And for me, like, fuck you lot, can't you see what's going on? You're such a bunch of dickheads. I don't even want to be in the same town as you anymore. I mean, look what that does to you. It's like, good, okay, got that out of my system. I'm going to watch Netflix now and learn about birds and dogs and watch puppy videos.
Yeah.
And feel, right? So we've got to, I think it's a lovely mix of both. I don't think we should silence ourselves. I don't think we should censor ourselves, but you've got to be accepting of how am I going to cope when the comes back at me?
Yeah. You can't just let yourself burn all the time. Like, no matter how passionate, how fired up you are about any cause that you believe in, if you just let yourself burn all the time, you're gonna burn out. That's literally burn out, right? So it's just how important it is to have a solid core that you can bring back.
And that place to come back to. That place of stillness. And this is my point with people finding safety in their own body, because for some people, any sensations and stuff in their body is just totally unsafe. So they numb out with alcohol or whatever. It is our responsibility. We have this human body to do that, to find, like, it might just be the end of this finger feels safe and quiet and the rest of me feels crap. Where in my body is it quiet right now? And that's another thing I'll do with my clients. Yes, you can feel all this stuff in your heart and it's breaking and it's really painful. Let's journey through the rest of your body and let's find somewhere in your body where it feels quiet and calm. And I'll make them go on that journey and find it. And they'll say, oh, my left hand feels pretty relaxed. Okay, let's rest there. It's like, if you look at it from an element point of view, right? Our body is earth and water and all those things. If we're, as you say, burning and the fire energy is going, we get overdone with that and we forget the air element. We forget the breath. We forget the water, which is the flowing of emotions and the movement of the energy. We forget the earth, which is our bony matrix and our blood. We've got to, like, for some people, balancing out the elements is a good way to look at it as well. Because when all of our elements within our physical body are kind of working with each other, and this is actually a practice I take my clients on, I go, okay, let's go through the elements. How is the element of water in your body right now? And they'll see the imbalances. It's like, well, I feel dried out on the inside, like nothing's moving. It's all like this. Okay, so the water element isn't flowing. Let's look at the air element. Is there space between the organs? Can you feel the pockets of air around your joints? Yep, I can feel all of that. Great, there's a bit of air in there. And teaching that balance through the elements. So that's another nice practice to do.
Okay, so I want to ask you, just before we close up, if people want to work with you, like what kind of people do you work with, and what can you help them like achieve or remedy in their body, their emotions, their lives?
So I work with adults who are interested in stopping repressing what's really going on for them and want some support to be courageous enough to address what's being locked inside. Through their nervous system work, understanding how their nervous system works, and everyone knows about fight or flight, how we need to tend to our nervous system as much as we tend to our diet, to learn about emotions as being energy that just wants to move through, to face into uncomfortable emotions, leading through to a place of freedom and lightness. You know, it's all going to end well. And to understand energetically how they can work with energy as an asset that is a way to be in the world. So everyone has a relationship that they struggle with, or intimacy issues, or something that they want to move through and see what's possible for them on the other side, and access those powerful parts of themselves. So I use a combination of all of those things. Sometimes my clients need the trauma release work at the beginning of every session, which is the muscle tremoring or the vagus nerve work. Some people want to go straight into a meditation, but it's all about using your body to be the vessel to find safety and to feel safe and to be here on earth. Because then all of the stuff about soul purpose, what did I come here to do? What's my mission in life? All of that comes through very easily, but not if you are locked down and holding on to your past. So that's the kind of work I do with people. And it's not entry level. It's not like it's for absolute beginners, because you need to understand what is the impact on me of not addressing this shit. Now I want to do something about it. So generally people come to me a bit scared, I'm a bit nervous. I'm scared to open the lid of what's going to happen. Like open the can of worms is an expression my clients use a lot. But my nervous system is resonating at a frequency that helps people feel safe. And our nervous system is constantly out there looking for a stable, calm nervous system. You know, you walk into a room and someone feels like really intense and really unsafe. It's like, oh no. But someone feels like, oh, I could have a conversation with this person. They maintain eye contact. They actually listen to me. That's the container that I offer people. And then the armor drops. And then they feel like, okay, it's safe to really say out loud what I've maybe never had the courage to say before. And then at the end of the session, and I work in sort of 3 and 6 month containers, at the end of that time, people are like, I feel lighter, I feel freer. That thing doesn't bother me anymore. I know that I can address this, I can continue to address this thing and not pretend that it's not happening. Like, it's like they get a part of themselves back again that that was there all the time, but was really buried in life's crap that we hold on to.
So you work with people in person? Do you work with people online? How do people work with you?
Yeah, both. Well, I've certainly learnt the necessity of working on Zoom, like we all have, and conducted many a session last year with people in the UK and America. So it can be online through Zoom sessions, and I find that this work works very effectively that way. In fact, sometimes it creates a bit of a buffer for people to feel like, you know, they're not right there in the room with me with that sort of being observed, but through the screen often makes people feel a bit safer. Sometimes people come in person and I just put them on my beautiful massage table, and I get my tuning forks out and I do chakra points on their body, and we start the session like that. It's all about finding a sense of calmness before we address the crap. And so in person is fantastic. I do groups. I've had groups of 6 and 8 women, and we'll just do online sessions together over 6 weeks. Like, there's so many ways for it to happen. I've had the privilege of having men as well, who just want to work with their nervous system. And so people just need to reach out. They can find me on my YouTube channel is full of stuff. If you want to get a sense of what it would be like to work with me, go to my YouTube channel, which is Mellisa Turnock. I have 100 and more videos all about nervous system, emotions, practical stuff like we've just talked about, because you're not going to decide to come and work with someone in really sort of private, uncomfortable ways until you get a sense of, there's something about this person that makes me feel courageous enough to go there. There's a gazillion and one healers out there, right? They're every bloody where. You need to feel like, Mel speaks my language. Oh my God, it's like she's talking to me. So go to the YouTube channel, watch some videos. My website is melissaturnock.com, and there's more information there. And we just have a conversation. You know, sometimes people will have a Zoom chat and they'll be like, don't even tell me anything. I know I need to work with you. Let's sign up right now. Others want to ask a couple of questions, whatever is appropriate for you.
Yeah. Okay. So I would definitely list ways people can find you in the show notes under this episode. So thank you so much, Mellisa. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I have enjoyed it. Thank you for taking me down memory lane and it's really good to talk about this stuff, because we get to get a sense of where we're at and really honor and acknowledge that. And, you know, you will have got things out of this conversation. That's why we have to keep talking.
Yes.
Right. We have to keep bringing this stuff up, because it's little light bulb moments for other people, and it gives them a sense of, permission, yeah, probably I should go there. There's some good stuff on the other side of it. So
Yeah,
thanks
and
again.
it's ways for people to finally have more self-awareness and start taking, no matter how small a step, to start taking, like, you can't control like everything's going on outside, but start to take back some control of our mind and our bodies.
Yeah, all starts with you. Yeah, so a pleasure. So good to chat, my love.